What's good, YouTube? Quinn Wade basketball analysis coming to y'all with a quick video. Today we're going to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that we all figured will make the playoffs. People said they was going to make the playoffs last year, and I was one of the people that said, this Timberwolves, they got Zach LaVine, they got Andrew Wiggins, they got Karl Anthony Towns. Everywhere I was going, every place that I seen, every person that does the same thing I do, all predicted last year that the Timberwolves will make the playoffs. And they didn't. And I was one of the people, if you go back and look, I told you guys the Minnesota Timberwolves will not make the playoffs last year, and they didn't even really come close to making the playoffs. And I said that, and I was happy that I was right, even though I like Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, and Zach LaVine, and they all was averaging 20 points at the same time in a couple months before Zach LaVine got injured. Well, a couple weeks later, Zach LaVine got a major injury, but Karl Wiggins and Zach LaVine all was averaging 20 plus points at the same time, and they still could not win. They still could not play team basketball, and they still didn't play great defense. Now, this team still is not a great defensive team, especially compared to the teams like the Boston Celtics and the Chicago Bulls teams that Tom Thibodeau coached back then. Remember, Boston was one of the best defensive teams. Kevin Garnett won Defensive Player of the Year under Tom Thibodeau, and also Joakim Noah was able to raise him up a Defensive Player of the Year under the tutelage of Tom Thibodeau. So I wanted to bring that up, that he has consistently, wherever he has coached, even in Houston when he coached under Jeff Van Gundy, everywhere he go, his defensive schemes has allowed the teams that, even if they didn't have great defenders, to still be great defensive teams. And when they had a great defender, they was able to turn them into elite defenders and Defensive Player of the Year candidates and winners. This Minnesota team, with Butler, with Wiggins, you have athleticism at the wing positions, the positions you need to guard the most, because you have KD, Kawhi, LeBron, Paul George, Carmelo. You know the things. You know these players. You have the best positions in the West is the point guard position and the wing positions. And they got that covered. Jeff Teague is a quick, mobile, athletic point guard. He lost and declined a little bit, especially after that knee surgery, but he's still a capable defender. And obviously, you still do have Jimmy Butler and Andrew Wiggins at the wing position, and they're long, athletic, and they 6'8", small forwards and shooting guards that's athletic as hell, and they can jump out that gym, and they still don't have the perimeter defense. They don't have the inside protection, because Karl Anthony Towns, you think about Kevin Garnett, he has a similar skill set to Kevin Garnett, but he's not the defender that Kevin Garnett ended up turning out to be. Even though he always was a good defender, he got even better under the tutelage of Tom Thibodeau, and Karl Anthony Towns is still one of the worst defenders in the league. Also, their offense, like I said, last year, all three of their best players averaged 20 points. This year, Wiggins had to go from number 1 2 years ago to number 2 last year to number 3 this year, because Jimmy Butler, to me, has been the best player on the Minnesota Timberwolves because of his defense, also because of his playmaking ability, his ability to get the ball in pick and roll situations, get the shots that he wants, pick apart the defense with his passing, dump off to Gorgie, dump off to Karl Anthony Towns, passes to Taj Gibson for layups, dunks, and mid-range jumpers, and sometimes threes, but still be able to get his shot. It's basically like a pick your poison. Do you want Jimmy Butler to shoot spot-up threes? Do you want Jimmy Butler to come off screens and get mid-range jumpers? Or do you want the big man and people like Andrew Wiggins and Jeff Teague getting easy lanes to the basket and wide-open spot-up threes? Andrew Wiggins has been a little disappointing, but he has to get adjusted to his role underneath Jimmy Butler and Karl Anthony Towns. Like I said, when Andrew Wiggins came in and was the number 1 pick and got traded to Minnesota, he was able to shoot and do whatever he wanted that first 2 years because, they didn't have the talent that they do now. Now that he's on a team with Taj Gibson, with Jeff Teague, with Karl Anthony Towns, with Jimmy Butler, with Gorgie Dane, with all these other players like Jamal Crawford, he has to share the ball. He has to play off the ball. He can't play the same way he played his first couple years in Minnesota because he was one of the building blocks in the guy. Now that they have more talent, your numbers go down, your touches go down because you have to share the ball because you have more talent and you're playing with more talent. But what's supposed to happen is the more talent you have is supposed to make your job easier because now you don't have to take those tough shots. Now you don't have to worry about getting double teamed every possession because you have other talented players to take pressure off of you while also allowing you to play better on defense because now you don't have to carry the load and take as many shots and carry the offense on offense. Now you should be able to be a better defender. But Andrew Wiggins, just like Karl Anthony Towns, he has the size, he has the athleticism. He don't have the weight yet, but he has the size and athleticism to be a great defender, and he's just not getting it, and he's just not a great defensive team. I mean, a great defensive player like we thought he would because everybody predicted that Andrew Wiggins could be a great defender, even me, when he got drafted from the Wolves based off his body type and what he was doing in high school and college, and he hasn't lived up to that hype. They still is one of the better offensive teams. It's hilarious how Tom Thibodeau never been known for his offense. He always knew how to scrap and grit and grind W's, hard W's. And it was because his offense was never that great. This team is getting 108 points a game. That's seventh in the NBA. That's a top 10 offense in the league. And that's under Tom Thibodeau, something that you usually don't see. But they also lacking in rebounding. A team with Bill Butler, Taj Gibson, Gorgie Dane, Karl Anthony Towns is a team that's only getting 41.5 rebounds. That's 23rd. They're moving the ball about in the middle of the pack, 15th. 22.5 assists. That's not bad, but it could be better. But you don't really have to worry about the assists until you get into the playoffs because you can't really rely on isolation ball and just give the ball to Jimmy Butler. Let him figure it out. That don't really work in the playoffs. And their points allowed has been going up. They went from being a middle of the pack team to the 13th, which is almost top 10 in points allowed at 105. Like I said, you do go against good teams. You do go against bad teams. You do go against teams that's playing back-to-backs. So every team is not going to score a lot of points. Every team is not a great offensive team. So you got to kind of play the percentage game. What teams are they playing against? What teams are they beating? What teams are they playing? Because like I said, when they played against Boston, Boston's not a great offensive team. So they really didn't hold Boston to that low point. Boston just struggles to score in general. So during the season, it's hard to, gauge these stats because you're playing a mixed bag of teams. Championship teams, good teams, contenders, bad teams, and horrible teams. And that all goes into your numbers. Even if you count the points per game, the assists, and the rebounds, that's against bad and good and great teams. So you can't really pay that much attention to stats. The most important stat is that they're 25-16. They're 9 games above 500. We all knew that this team had talent, but we didn't know. Let's be real. Like I said, people predicted they was going to make the playoffs last year, and they didn't even come close. But even I predicted that this Minnesota team will be in the playoffs. I didn't expect them to be top 4, and I didn't expect this team to be 9 games above 500 before the All-Star break. And that's because they just got Jimmy Butler, they just got Jeff Teague, they just got Taj Gibson, they just got Jamal Crawford. They added so many new players to their roster. I thought they was gonna have some time to gel, some time to get it right, some time to find out the stepping stone. And even when Jimmy Butler played earlier this season, he was only averaging around 15, 16 points. His numbers steadily went up each and every game. His stats was able to continue to go up, especially offensively. And I can just tell you that before I end the video about Jimmy Butler. In October, Jimmy Butler was not one of the better offensive players like he is now, averaging 21.5 points and 5 assists. I already talked about his playmaking ability in the beginning of the video, but let's just look at his game log and just talk about that for a bit. When he first got acclimated inside in November, he only averaged 16 points and 43% from the field, but he still got his assist. The next month, which is November, he was able to average 17 points And in December, he averaged 26.5 points on 50% shooting and 92 from the free throw line and 5 assists. Now we're in January. He averaging 23.3 points in the beginning, the first 5 games, with the first 4 games, but he also shooting better from three, great from the free throw line, averaging 6.8 assists on 23.3 points a game. So Jimmy Butler has gotten better each and every month and got more acclimated and just got more chemistry with his teammates. And now he's playing like the dominant two-way playmaker scorer that they needed, something that Wiggins hasn't shown that he can do. Wiggins showed that he can score the basketball, but he didn't play the defense. He wasn't a great he didn't play as good on defense compared to Jimmy Butler. He wasn't the playmaker that Jimmy Butler was, and he didn't make his teammates better the way that Jimmy Butler do. And Jimmy Butler makes the game easier because of his basketball IQ. That's why Jimmy Butler has surpassed Carl and Wiggins, because he's the best player on the roster, and you're starting to see that now. You couldn't see it in the beginning. You couldn't really see it in the first couple months, but now you're starting to see it as the season goes on, that they needed that veteran leadership. They needed the veteran like Crawford and Taj Gibson to help them win and close out games, something that they struggled to do last year. They had a lot of big leads, but they kept blowing them. They couldn't finish games, and now they're getting big leads. Now they're finishing games. Now they're closing games. Now they're helping build this chemistry. And the question is, do you think this Minnesota Timberwolves team is a championship contender? Remember, Kawhi Leonard has been injured majority of this year with San Antonio. Then he just tore something in his shoulder, was going to sideline him for more games, giving Minnesota, and they lost yesterday too, giving Minnesota a chance to try to get that 3 seed in the West. Also, you got teams like Houston and Golden State that is obviously contenders for the championship. But do you think that the Minnesota Timberwolves is on their level? Do you think the Timberwolves can challenge the Golden State Warriors, the Rockets, and the Spurs in the Thunder, who's going to be in that as they continue to build their chemistry? So let me know what you guys think about the Timberwolves. Do you think they contender? Do you think they still got things to figure out? Do you think it's 2 years from now? Do you think it's next year that they be contenders? Or do you think that, they only going to get better as the season go on, and they should be contenders by the end of the season because they're already winning, they're already closing out games, and they're already playing great basketball, and their defense has slightly been improving, but it's still not at a championship level, and neither really is their passing and rebounding. But every team has a flaw, every team has a weakness, every team has personnel problems, because I don't like this team bench. But, they still playing good together, and they still win basketball games. Check out my website, analysisplayground.com. Link will be in the description in the comment section below. Like the video, show support. If you go to my Facebook page, like on Facebook, and also check out my website, analysisplayground.com. Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis. I'm gone. And let me know what you guys think about the Minnesota Timberwolves.